what you got to understand is that almost every piece of media that you consume, whether it is a rap song, a movie, a television program, it is owned by a rich corporation or a large financial institution that is connected to the elites. Do you really think the elites would want to show you something when they're already rich? That way, you yourself can become rich as well. Do you think that's their goal? Why is it that everything on TV makes you dumber, poorer, and less aware of your surroundings? I'm just picking rap because it is culturally relevant. Just like in the 1980s, it was rock music. If this was the 80s, I would be talking about rock music. My opinion is that hip hop had good intentions in the beginning when it was organic in the communities. KRS-One, you had Busy Bee, Biz Markie, all these older rappers who either talked about real stuff or they were funny. You Say She's Just a Friend. I like that song. I'm not opposed to the genre. It's just that it's been hijacked, weaponized against the people. Let me give you an example based upon public information. The largest holder in Core Civic, which is a private prison, the largest private prison group, which means they literally get paid to incarcerate people, is Vanguard Group Inc. The largest holder in GEO Private Prison Group, which is the second largest private prison group in the US, is Vanguard. The largest holder in Viacom and Time Warner, which are record labels, is Vanguard Group Inc. To make this easier, Vanguard is basically an investment group. You can create your own account on Vanguard if you want. You can also go to Charles Schwab. You can invest in stocks, index funds, all kinds of things. If you're going to do it, though, I would prefer Charles Schwab because Vanguard profits off putting people in jail. That's just not really my thing. I'm not into that. But you use your own discretion for that matter. Basically, these large investment firms, they own the majority of the shares of these companies. It all goes back to a small few investment firms that own most of the things in this country, including a lot of rap labels. Further looking into all of the dots, connecting them together, Lil Baby has the record label Quality Control Music, which is distributed through Motown and Caroline, both subsidiaries of Capitol Music Group. Capitol Music Group is owned by Universal Music Group, which is owned by Vivendi and a Chinese tech company, Tencent, I think it's called. I've never heard of the company before, owning a minority stake. Vivendi is owned by a private investment firm, Tocqueville Private Wealth Management, which is in partnership with the Bank of New York Mellon. Let's decipher all that. So Lil Baby is signed to a record label. That record label is owned by partially a Chinese tech company, which is troubling within itself, also by Vivendi, and Vivendi is owned by Tocqueville Private Wealth Management, which is a group with rich elite investors, which is also connected to the Bank of New York Mellon. Andrew Mellon was the Treasury Secretary to Calvin Coolidge way back when. Kind of weird how a lot of these Treasury secretaries end up creating their own banks, just like Samuel Chase, who was the Treasury Secretary to Lincoln, but that's another story for another day. The point I'm making is Lil Baby, he's not part of the streets. He's not part of the hood. Maybe he was. I'm not sure. I don't know the guy's background or whatever he is. But He is owned by the Bank of New York Mellon and a private wealth management group. What about Polo G? He looks organic on the surface. He created his own label, which is ODA, in partnership with Columbia Records. Columbia Records is owned by Sony. The largest shareholder of Sony is PrimeCap Management, who has 24 undisclosed clients. These 24 clients basically own Sony and basically own the rights to Polo G's music. This is all public information. You can look all this up yourself if you care to do this. This is all on Google, but I use DuckDuckGo. Google spies on you, but this is all public information. You can look all this up. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's just that most people don't take the time to look up this information. The point I'm making is this isn't anti-establishment. A private management group of 24 billionaires, that's not anti-establishment. And you really think those 24 billionaires want you creating your own business and taking away resources from them? You really think that? You really think that Vanguard does not have an interest in putting people in private prisons? You don't really think that Tocqueville private group really cares about you, right? These are rich elites at the top, just part of the ruling class who own everything. Now that we went over that, let's conclude with the history of gangster rap. The first gangster rap group in 1986 was NWA. In 1981, President Reagan authorized CIA military action against Nicaragua. The CIA hired Nicaraguan Colonel Bermudez. Bermudez founded the Fuerza Democrática Nicaragüense, the best trained and funded of the Contras. To help fund the Contras, they started trafficking Colombian cocaine in the U.S. with the collaboration of the National Security Chiefs and the CIA, both certain members of the government. So the National Securities Chief and the CIA are in the government. For those of you that are unfamiliar with the NSC, that's another story for another day. The men behind NWA's record company, Ruthless Records, were Eazy-E, who was a drug dealer, Jerry Heller, a Caucasian Jew, and Michael Klein. The Jewish Defense League was on the payroll of Ruthless Records. Heller and Klein called the Jewish Defense League instead of the police when they were under threat from Suge Knight. When Dr. Dre wanted to be released from his contract, he used the hitman Suge Knight to try and beat up Heller. Eazy-E, they beat the hell out of him with a baseball bat to get out of that contract. Suge Knight was the bagman for Death Row at the time. Instead of calling the police, Jerry Heller and Michael Klein both contacted the Jewish Defense League. The Jewish Defense League was founded by Rabbis Mir Kahi. The Jewish Defense League is a CIA cutout. They do a lot of work with the CIA. They collaborate a lot with them. And also intelligence services. It also has ties to Mossad. Mossad is the CIA, the intelligence for Israel. Operation Watchtower was a program where drugs to LA gangs in exchange for money went towards guns for Nicaragua. LA was a major site of the CIA-Contra connection to crack cocaine in the 1980s. Both Eazy-E and Suge Knight were involved in gang-related crack cocaine rings. So, to put it succinctly, during the 1980s, Ronald Reagan wanted to fund the Iran-Contras. In order to do that covertly, the CIA trafficked drugs into the inner cities. One of the most famous airports they used was the Mena, Arkansas airport when Bill Clinton was the president. They literally made a movie about this called Made in America, where Tom Cruise is Barry Seal, a pilot who flies drugs for the CIA. They use that money from selling crack cocaine in order to buy weapons for the Contras. They were infiltrating the inner cities with drugs. Eazy-E and Suge Knight, who both were gangster rap pioneers, I guess you could say, they both got rich selling drugs in the inner cities. They were drug lords. With the money he used from selling drugs, and this isn't even a secret, Eazy-E admitted this. Eazy-E ended up founding the group NWA. That's how he met Jerry Heller. In order to get people to want to consume the drugs through programming, you had to create the music. You create the music, you create the culture, people start doing the drugs. It was manufactured. And that is how you got gangster rap. After gangster rap, you still have the rap today. It's not necessarily gangster rap, but it still talks about killing, raping people, beating people up, doing drugs, and all other kinds of things. But that was the origins of when rap went from talking about conscious ideas like helping the inner cities, spirituality, having fun in the park, rapper's delight, went from that to these terrible things. The first gangster rap song actually is considered, I forget the name of it, but Cruising Down the Street in My 6'4". I'm sure you guys heard that song before. I mean, I'm not even that into rap, and I've heard that song before. It's like cruising down the street in my 6'4", smacking the bitches, slapping the hoes, something like that. That's what the song's called. It was literally Eazy-E in a studio, and Dr. Dre made the beat. That was the first ever gangster rap song. Boys in the Hood, that's what that song was called. That was the first gangster rap song ever made. And from that, you had the branding of the hood culture. And now that culture is now increasing in scope. You have white guys in the inner cities who are into that. Now, if you're into the music, that's one thing. I mean, every once in a while, I can listen to some rap if I'm playing basketball or working out. But when you want to live it, talk like it, act like it, dress like it, it's just a little weird, in my opinion. But it's all by design. To sum it all up, the elites control it. I gave you the connections. They control it. Big financial institutions, the big banks, they control all the entertainment. They want you to work, pay your taxes, and be mediocre. They do not want you to become conscious of the power structure. They do not want you to become independent of the system, independent financially, independent mentally, or in any particular way. That is why they are using rap music to dumb us down, to program us subconsciously to act like an idiot, to act like a dumb cracker redneck, or act like you're from the hood. It has nothing to do with race, it's about culture. Rather than to be a good businessman, a good father, all of that energy you would use to raise your kids, to protect your country, to build up people in your community, you're using it to protect your gang, you're using it for other things like that. And that's basically the point. The people involved, I'm not super mad at some of them. I mean, think about it. You're a young kid. Think about Eazy-E. You're a young kid selling drugs. Someone says, hey, man, I'm going to make you rich and famous. I mean, would you deny it? I'm not even mad at him. It's just that all of these particular individuals had interest, and these interests coincided together, which created gangster rap. There's also a rumor which can't be substantiated, which was an anonymous letter that came out in the early 2000s, where they stated that in the 1990s, the early 90s, they wanted to shift music from rock and roll to gangster rap. There was a meeting with famous executives where they told them they had stock in the private prisons, and they wanted to change the music to gangster rap music to put more people in those prisons. Again, that can't be substantiated, but I can tell you Vanguard Investment Group owns private prisons, and they own record labels which create gangster rap. Thank you for listening. Be conscious, be aware of your mind.